Good day and welcome to another Comm Solutions Aruba Networks Tech Tip. My name is Bill Carr. I'm the Chief Mobility Architect at the Comm Solutions Company. And today we're going to talk about demystifying RFC3576, or Radius Change of Authorization. Let's get started. So you may be familiar with Radius and the fact that it's used for authenticating devices to your network. It was built back in the dial-up days, and in fact it stands for Remote Access Dial-Up User Services. That's what the acronym Radius stands for. It's originally designed for authenticating users to a network on a dial-up modem pool with a centralized repository of usernames and passwords. Think of the AOL and CompuServe days. It's been expanded and used for things like .1x authentication, network device authentication for centralized administration, VPN and router administration, as well as captive portal and web-based authentication services. So here we're looking at a Radius server. This is Aruba's flagship AAA access management solution called ClearPass Policy Manager. And here we've configured an Aruba controller as a Radius client. We've configured its IP address and the shared secret for communication with the device. We also enable Radius Change of Authorization, which is a checkbox when we configure the device in our Radius server. Once we have Radius Change of Authorization configured, we then have to make sure that the device itself is configured to send Radius requests, also send Radius accounting records, as well as support Radius interim accounting. So here we're actually looking at a Aruba controller. We're looking at a AAA profile for called .1x ClearPass. We have it's designed for a wireless network using .1x authentication. We're going to send our authentication requests to our ClearPass server. We're also going to have Radius accounting set up to send Radius accounting records to that same server. In addition, we're also going to configure RFC3576 to be sent to that same IP address. It's also very important that Radius interim accounting, which is a checkbox on the AAA profile, is turned on. And we can actually configure the interval at which those Radius accounting records are written on the Authentication Advanced tab, where we can change the stats frequency. The default is 300 seconds, which would mean that we would write accounting records to the server at that interval. And we're now going to take a quick peek and see if we can find a user. I've cheated a little bit. I know I have a user on the network I can find. It happens to be me, using my iPad. And if I scroll down, I'll actually see here's a user called Bcar using his iPad. He's been assigned the engineer role, and he happens to be on that CSC ClearPass SSID that we have configured. Let's just take a peek and make sure that his session is still active, see that he's on the network, and find out a little bit about his accounting records. So he is authenticated. He authenticated against our ClearPass Policy Manager 6-node, and his role was derived from receiving back an Aruba vendor-specific attribute, which set his role to be an engineer. So now we're going to go in ClearPass Policy Manager and take a quick peek at our accounting records and authorization records. So here we see at 1438, a user named Bcar authenticated to the SSID CSC ClearPass. They were given the engineer role, and we sent back the Aruba vendor-specific attribute to set the role to be an engineer. We can also see we have an accounting tab up here. We actually have accounting records for this session. The session is still active. Because the session is still active, I actually have a change status button here. So I can actually then change the status of that user's session and I'm going to actually send a terminate session to that device for change of authorization. And we receive back a message that our session terminate was successful. Notice our last timestamp of 1438. I've actually knocked the user off the network. And if we look closely in just a few seconds, we'll actually see that that device will re-authenticate and rejoin our network. And just waiting for that record to come in. And now we can see a new record that's come in at 1505, authenticating our user to our network. One of the most common questions people ask, so why would I want to use Radius Change of Authorization? Well, change of authorization comes in really handy when we start to do some advanced things with authentication, where we're checking for device profiling or posture checking of health status. So let's walk through a little workflow here where a user connects to our wireless network. They authenticate to our corporate network. The first thing we do is check to see if they're using unique device credentials such as a TLS cert or unique authentication credential, or if they're simply using their PEEP username and password. In this case, we can detect they're using their simple PEEP username and password and potentially even validate the type of device. Maybe it's an iPod or an Android device. We can then redirect them to an onboarding process, which would then provision the device securely for the wireless network. When that process completes, we want to send a change of radius authorization, you'll see in the lower left-hand corner, to actually disconnect the session that got us into that section of the loop to begin with. Second time through, as we pass from left to right into that diamond in the center, when we check our unique device credentials, we'll actually have unique credentials because we've been provisioned through the onboarding process. We can then go over and actually look at the next diamond decision tree on the right-hand side, where we check the posture token and assess the health of the device. If there isn't a healthy posture token on the device, we can redirect the user to install an agent, go through a web-based portal to assess their health, and then we actually assign a posture token based on the results of that and whether it meets our corporate security policy. Again, when this process completes, we again want to send that change of authorization to our wireless LAN switch to reassess the user and have them go through this decision tree again. And hopefully this time, as they pass left to right, they'll end up in the lower right-hand corner because they've not only used unique credentials such as the TLS cert to authenticate to our network, but they've been assessed with healthy posture, and we've assigned their appropriate user or device role and given them authentication services without any interaction, them having to disconnect or reconnect. So now we've given you a little bit of background on RFC3576, its reliance on radius accounting for proper operation, and what it'll be used for in an advanced authentication, authorization network where we're doing assessment and potentially posturing of devices. Please contact us if you have any additional questions or visit our website at www.commsolutions.com. Thank you.